So,
No, I would rather not have to.
Hey, there you go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Law School at the University of South Carolina School of Law. My name is Aaron Glenn. I'm one of the reference librarians here at the law school. Here in Columbia this morning, we are at a comfortable 72 degrees, but we've upped our humidity quite substantially, so I'm not sure how much we gained in the trade. But again, welcome everyone. I'll be speaking today about our use of two platforms for content delivery, Classmarker for online quizzing and LibGuides, which we've used to create an online textbook for our legal research program. There are many other platforms that you may have used or you may have access to in your schools, in your libraries, in your organizations. So I hope that a lot of the kind of general tips that I have today will be applicable to those. And if I can convince you to adopt LibGuides or Classmarker, these have both worked really well for us. So just jumping right in. So in our legal research classes, we've got a lot of content to cover. We've got our print content, we've got online content. We want to show students how they might go about citing this content and how to find the content using the citation. We have video content that we've been producing for our students to give them tutorials and kind of how-to videos to show them how they might access some of these resources and databases. And even sometimes how to go through the citation or updating process in print. So we've got all of that. And in addition to that, things keep changing. So our theme for this conference is paradigm shift. And you know, this might not be on a hugely grand scale, but there's something to be said for incremental change as well. And I've put up here our South Carolina court rule on citation of South Carolina authority. And the point that I'm trying to make by putting this up here is to let everyone know we've actually in the past couple of years changed our citation format for regulations. There used to be a volume number at the beginning and we've removed that. That's in the grand scheme, that seems like a small thing, but think about for a moment if we're using a print textbook, something that we've asked the students to purchase, and all of a sudden this printed textbook is wrong. We wanted some way to avoid those little changes, something that we could update and tailor to South Carolina materials specifically. Another thing that you might remember is in the past year or so we have moved from the old federal digital system, FDSys, to GovInfo. And so if we'd had a chapter in a printed textbook about where you can access official U.S. government documents, say it was a textbook from the past couple of years, that would still say Federal Digital System, FDSys. We wanted to be able to show our students the new interface for GovInfo and keep pace with those changes. So when we went about creating our online textbook and integrating in the online quizzes, some of the goals we had were to create a textbook that we could focus on South Carolina materials specifically. And this would apply to the states where any of you are located as well. You may have noticed in some of the materials that are provided by publishers or by our legal research services, these may or may not have as in-depth a coverage of your state as you would like. A couple of years ago, Westlaw started to advertise Westlaw Ready, and Lexis had Lexis Learn. And those are very good. Those are very good resources to use, although when we got to state-specific materials, it's hard to get state-specific coverage for each individual state. So for South Carolina, we wanted to be able to update our textbook with South Carolina-specific information. On our quizzes, we wanted these to be able to be taken outside of class. We wanted there to be good statistical information that we could draw from these quizzes to kind of let us know where our students were struggling. And we wanted to be able to provide immediate feedback to the students. One of the things that we hear over and over again is the students, they really want up-to-date information on their progress. They don't want to find out that they got something wrong 2 weeks later and then try to think where they were at that point. They want to be able to evolve and grow their skills right then and there as we're moving forward in the class, and so they won't feel like they're being left behind. And one of the biggest things is we wanted to be able to increase the amount of time that we can spend in the classroom researching one-on-one with the students or as a group. Students, and it's time and time again, have told us that they really value the time when they're able to research with us there to guide them. Just having us there to be able to raise a hand and come over and walk them through something that they might be having trouble with, that's very valuable. And again, we also got comments such as, we don't like PowerPoints, I realize the irony, but they enjoy having the ability to have more hands-on practice time, and that's some of the time that I feel is most valuable as well. So we wanted to be able to shift as much of the reading and quizzing outside of class rather than having some kind of model where we need to have pop quizzes or something like that in class to take up a sixth of our class time. All right, so in doing that, the platform we chose for our online textbook and what we've continued to use for a number of years here is LibGuides. How many of us in the classroom have seen LibGuides, used LibGuides? Okay, so a good many. That's good. LibGuides provides a really nice environment for editing. So as a content management system, it does a lot of what you would like very intuitively. There are some things that I really wish that I could tear the cover off of it sometimes and tinker with a few things myself, but it does a lot, and it does it very nicely, very intuitively. And as you can see here, I put up some of our guides on our main page for our library, and we use LibGuides not only for our online textbook, but we create guides that are meant for the public as well, for any of our patrons to use. And these are on a number of different topics. One of our go-to guides is our guide on South Carolina legal resources. This provides a good gathering point for things like links to our superseded statutes that we're able to make available online. We have some of our older codes, such as the 1952, 1942 South Carolina codes scanned and available up on this LibGuide. And just some general information as well on how to find different types of law in South Carolina. So it's a good thing that we can offer to our patrons, especially those that are calling our library over the phone. And another of these guides, and I'll just jump out to the web for a moment to show you, is our Circuit Riders Guide. And so this was a guide that was created and continues to be developed that's attempting to provide help to non-librarians, to non-law librarians, and really anyone that likes some direction in South Carolina materials. And there's some good explanation up there. There's a lot of information about accessing information in South Carolina, links to individual topical guides. One of the things that we worked on was just putting together a little icon grid of different little subject guides. And this is something that's been done collaboratively through all of us reference librarians here at the University of South Carolina School of Law. So we've got all of this great content that we can create through LibGuides. And when we thought about ways to adopt that in the classroom, it seems like, we've got all this good information online that we're sharing with the public. We can take that next step and we can create a guide that is tailored to our classroom. So going from those public guides, we see a transition here to our research textbook. So this is one of the pages in our research textbook for fall 2018 from this past year. One of the things that we do, and you may have already seen this in LibGuides, but LibGuides allows you to create a password for your guides. So for our classroom content, for our online textbook, we create the textbook and we give it a password that we provide to the students in their syllabus. This allows us to put class-specific content up there. Each instructor is able to have a class page to post things like assignment lists for students, and students are able to access handouts that are specific to their class. So we put that behind a password. And I'll jump out to the web really quickly just to show you what the landing page looks like for that. So we're on our homepage of the law library. We have a quick links drop-down menu, and one of the first ones here is for the LRAW textbook. And we create a guide for the fall and for the spring, and when the student's ready, they're able to log in. So we've got a lot of content that we're able to provide through these guides, and the LibGuides interface itself allows you to keep track of all the guides that you've created. This is what the homepage looks like when you're logged in. You're able to view all of your existing guides. You're able to work on them before you publish them, so some of them are listed as unpublished. A lot of times that serves as a great way to collaborate on internal documents within your organization that you want to be able to share with your colleagues, but you don't want as part of your public LibGuides. You can leave those unpublished in the system, and you can work on those until you're ready to publish them. Or if you want it to be an internal thing just for you and your colleagues, you can leave it unpublished, and all of you will be able to access it. And so I have an example here of just a blank page. And I know a lot of us in the room have already worked with LibGuides before, but I'd just like to create a quick demo for you of how I can very quickly turn this blank page into something useful. So let's go and visit that blank page. All right, so it's very blank. There's nothing here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. All right, so now that I'm logged in, the way that LibGuides works is, the way its content management system operates is you'll create different boxes to house your content. Now, let's say that I'm teaching an advanced legal research class, maybe even this summer. Let's say I've got a number of different topics that I want to cover, and I want to have my first unit be on emerging technology. That sounds like fun. So I've got my blank page here. I'm going to go ahead and I've got a little to-do list here of things that I'd like to add. So let's go ahead and create a box, and I'll call it Emerging Technology Unit. And I'll note for you that LibGuides allows you to create hidden boxes as well. So if you're using LibGuides for your textbook or for content you'd like to provide for your students, you can build this content in advance. If you click on this draft mode button, it'll stay hidden to everyone but you or others in your system that have editing rights. And then the morning before your class, you could go back into LibGuides, create that as a draft box. You can go back into LibGuides, uncheck this box, save it, and then it would be available. So it gives you that flexibility as well. And let's just say I want to add some explanation for our students of what's going on in this unit. So I have a little brief explanation with some learning objectives. I'm going to go ahead and just drop those in as rich text. All right, I'll go ahead and save that. So we've got a little bit of explanation of what's going on. And LibGuides allows you to create multiple boxes with different types of content. Rich text, links to databases, books from your library's catalog. You can put RSS feeds in there for current information, for news updates, polls. You can put forms in there. But I'm just going to put in a video here for my students. So go down here, and I'll go ahead and put in my video. And we use an Octo here at the law school for our video hosting, but this could of course be a YouTube video. It could be hosted from another service, whichever you would prefer. But once you've added that in there, it's ready and available for your.
Hello everyone, and welcome.
All right, so other things you can do. You can add documents here. So I've got a handout for my students that I'd like them to view before class. So I've got an updating handout here on updating federal regulations in GovInfo. And I'll go ahead and save that, and that'll just add that to the box. If I wanted to add a book from the catalog, I'm going to cheat a little bit for time's sake. I have an ISBN number ready to go. And let's say I wanted my students to be able to take a look at a book, a chapter in a book on drones. So I have an item here I can add for a book from the catalog, add that ISBN number, and click get book info, and I can edit any of this that I like. I can add a link here to book in our catalog, and once I save that, it'll appear like that in the guide. Now, you might not be able to get all this information all in one place for each book. A lot of times when we're adding materials, especially things like local bar treatises and things like that may not have all of this corporate information available ready to be put in. You may need to enter some of that content on your own or add your own picture. But LibGuides does allow you to add picture content very easily, and actually a difference between, and anyone who used LibGuides version 1 before we went to version 2 might remember, it was a little bit more difficult to manage your pictures in version 1. Version 2, the content tab has an area where you can upload and manage your images very easily. Has anyone ever been to Chimney Rock in North Carolina? Okay, so a few in the room. All right, so I'm just going to add a picture here very quickly. I'm going to go into rich text. I'm going to add a picture. I'm going to browse, and so this takes us into the image manager, and so these are pictures that I've uploaded within the system. And I've got a few different pictures here that I can choose from, but let's go ahead and add this one. Oh, there it is. All right. So my wife and I were taking a trip up to Chimney Rock. We're having a good time. We're hiking, and we're up there near the top. And I see a sign on the door as we're opening the door to the gift shop up there, and where they've got some food and so forth. And there's this sign on the door about drone laws in the park. And of course, what do? It's like, hold on. I gotta take a picture of this. Hold on.
Regulation.
Yeah. Yep. So we've got the drone regulation up here, and and as you can see there, it's just talking about regulations for drones in the park. It's an aviation regulation that they're using to tell people that you cannot have aircraft taking off or landing within the park without authorization. They've got up there, they of course got a picture of the drone there, and the word used in the regulation is flying machine. And so a drone is a machine, it flies, so that's covered. That's covered. So anyway, so there's a lot of different content you can add in LibGuides, and very quickly we've gone from a blank page to a page that you can preview. And as we can see, we've got some introduction for the students, we've got some objectives for this unit, we've got some handouts we can give them, video content, we can pull in resources from our library, and we can add pictures, could be for illustration, could be for fun, could be an image of citation formats. There's a lot that you can do. So, taking us back where we were. So we've come a long way from that blank page. But, and I'll jump back here really quickly. But I can't let the students go that easily, can I? I need some assessment. So one of the other things I could do here is add a box for the quiz. And I'm going to make a link here. For the ever so fun quiz. But what am I going to link it to? That's where Classmarker comes in. All right, so let me get back to my place here. All right, so we've built our page. We've got the means to deliver videos and handouts and other materials to the students, but at the end of the day, I will need to be able to assess what the students have learned and make sure that they're keeping up with the material, especially as we move through the class. So there are, of course, a number of different platforms that one might choose for online assessment. We have been using Classmarker and it has worked very well for us. There are, of course, different types of questions you can create on Classmarker, different settings that you can choose. There are a number of question types available. There are a few of these that have worked better or worse for us. One of our goals, of course, is to be able to provide that immediate feedback using the online quizzing. And there are multiple choice, true, false, and matching questions that you can get that immediate feedback with. To some extent, you can get immediate feedback with free text in Classmarker if you want a free response. However, that has the pitfall of you'll have to choose all of the different options that someone might select if you're choosing free text. So if the student misspells a word, that's wrong unless you anticipated that. If they punctuate it and you didn't punctuate it, it would be wrong. So there are oftentimes, we'll be using the multiple choice, true, false, or the matching. Those are easier for us to provide the immediate feedback for. Now there are essay questions, yes.
Is LibGuides and Classmarker ADA compliant? Or can you add information so they're, I just came from an accessibility.
Yeah. LibGuides allows you to add LibGuides does allow you to add alternate text to all of the images. Classmarker, you need to add captions for images, and Classmarker does allow screen reader use.
Okay.
You're welcome. All right. One of the things that we have made great use of is the resume later option that's available within Classmarker. So one of the issues that we would run into from time to time when students were required to finish the quiz in one sitting is you have the student that calls you or emails you and says, I've got the quiz open but my laptop is dying, or I exited out of the quiz and I don't know how to get back in. I only have one attempt. The resume later option within Classmarker allows the student to save the quiz. It allows them to come back and finish the quiz later. And we've been able to use that to help the students resolve those situations, and also it helps us whenever something goes wrong. Grading and statistics are very well done in Classmarker. You're able to create individual links for each instructor, so I can create a quiz and I can assign that quiz to multiple instructors who will each have their own link that contains their content. So I have 5 other colleagues that are each teaching within our legal research and writing program, and for each of those instructors, they will each have their own statistics that can be compared against all of the others. So my results can be compared against others, or we can look at all of the questions together as a whole and see which questions the students are struggling with, which ones they are doing better or worse on. And as we can see up here on the board, so we'll have a readout that looks somewhat like this. We've got a student here, AG, who has not done very well apparently. But if we wanted to, we could go into those results and see what that student has gotten wrong. And the report that you would see looks something like this. So you'll see a readout of the questions that that student got right or wrong. You'll see the answers that they chose. And the student can get an email confirmation to show them what their score was, and you can adjust that so that the student either receives just their score, they receive perhaps only the questions they got wrong, or you can provide for them all the questions that they chose with the right or wrong answers. Oftentimes we've found it's easier just to provide the score. The students, they sometimes want a confirmation so that they can be sure that they have submitted their quiz. All right. And so I've got a couple of examples up here. This is a practice quiz that we created. So as you can see here, we've got a number of different quiz questions, very simple questions. One of the things we wanted to do with our practice quiz was give students the ability to select from this different content and get more comfortable with using our Classmarker interface. So we've got up here some quick questions, and as everyone can see, students taking the practice quiz did a pretty good job of knowing who our mascot here is at the University of South Carolina. And as everyone can see, that would be Cocky. And we had a few different others here. And our last question there was primarily motivated towards getting feedback from the students on whether or not they felt more comfortable working with the software after taking the short little quiz. All right, so that takes me to our next question. What happens when something goes wrong? Can anyone think of anything that's happened at their institution, at their school, at your organization? Anything that's gone wrong with your data where you'd have to rely on your backups?
I think one year the interface for the quizzing system changed right before we gave the quiz.
Okay.
Final exam.
Oh, wow.
Which caused problems.
Yeah. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you're counting on these platforms for either your quizzing or your content hosting, if the platform changes, that's a problem.
Well, Apple rolls out an update at midnight before the morning of an exam, and your testing software doesn't have the patch in time.
Right. That's another instance. So again, that's something going on with the platform you're using that you wouldn't have, that just comes out of the blue right when you're ready to give that test. All right. So these are both good examples. I've got another one for everyone. Some of you might remember back in 2017, Amazon Web Services went down for an afternoon. And unfortunately for us, LibGuides relies on Amazon Web Services for much of its hosting, and to some extent Panopto does as well. And so we ended up with a bit of a double whammy in terms of our textbook being inaccessible, our videos were offline. We were trying to think of what to do. We had backups of our material that we could provide for the students, and thankfully, by the end of the day, by 5 o'clock, these services were restored, and so students were again able to access the textbook, and they were able to access their videos, and they were going to be able to take their quiz. Classmarker did not go down, but of course, the students want to be able to study the content that they're going to be assessed on, and so we couldn't have one without the other. So after this scenario, we thought a bit more about having these safeguards in place for instances where something goes wrong. And from some of the examples that we've talked about already, if the outage is something that's limited to the platform that you're using, let's say it's LibGuides, Classmarker, perhaps Blackboard, one of these different services, you're going to want to know what you would do. And that might be using alternate services, that might be creating backups that you can send out to the students via email. So there are a couple different ways that you can address this. And one of the things that LibGuides does allow you to do is it allows you to create HTML backups of your pages. And so this is a quick and easy way to have something to refer to, even if you haven't had time to create a full backup of your content or create an alternate handout for your students. And so on this little example page that we created today, if I wanted to back this up, let's say I was worried that this content was going to become unavailable, I can very quickly create an HTML backup of this page. And I'll go ahead and I'll save that with my other files. And so once I've got that, I've got a little backup of my content. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that the videos will play or be available if you have to distribute content as a PDF. Once I have it as the HTML copy, I could create a PDF of it if I'd like. I can take that content, I can put it into Word, structure it a little better, create a PDF of that information. But those are a couple of the ways that you could address that problem. One of the things that we've done for our videos is we've created scripts for the videos that can be uploaded that have a transcript of the video, and where we can, we've been adding screenshots from the video that can walk the students through the individual steps, even if we're not able to provide the video to them. So another concern. So talking about the videos. If the outage is, let's say that everything is fine with LibGuides, but our video hosting is down, you'd want to be able to go to alternatives. If you are sending files to a technology department to be uploaded, I would suggest keeping access to the raw files as well if you're creating them, the MP4 files or the WAV files, whatever format that you're using. Because if you need to, you can go to another platform like YouTube and you can add those videos as well. And one of the ways that you might do that is listing your videos as a private YouTube video. That way you can keep your content kind of as closely held as possible, so that it's your students needing the link to be able to find it, rather than having your content more available than you would like. So look for alternatives and have a couple of different ways out if you do run up against a problem. Another thing to consider, of course, is your syllabus. You're going to want to have policies in place for addressing things like power failures or equipment malfunctions that may affect your students. And having these provisions in your syllabus beforehand will save you a lot of time and a lot of worry when these events do crop up. So one of these is, of course, assignment and question deadlines. So you'll want to anticipate that students may have technical difficulties or other circumstances that arise that prevent completion of the assignment. So you might need to be able to draw the distinction between the student that has waited until the very end, has emailed you at 11:59 when the assignment is due, either that morning or at midnight, and says, oh, My computer is dying, I'm emailing you from my phone, can I have an extension? You might have to be less lenient with someone like that than with someone who's told you the week before, my laptop was stolen, I'm working with getting access from my house, AT&T has torn out the wiring in my neighborhood, I'm going to come to the law school to finish. So a lot of times it's a question of how much notice someone's able to give you, how professional someone is in communicating with you their individual problems. Some of the language that we developed for our syllabus over the past couple of years deals with technology problems and internet outages. We added internet outages in as a way to bring in some of these problems of people losing access. So we have up here that, as in practice, technology problems and not having internet access are not going to be an excuse. People need to test their equipment, people need to be able to adapt, and leave themselves time to adapt to problems. And just as in practice, leaving these problems unchecked and unverified and waiting to the last minute will all be ways to fare poorly in the course as well as in practice. Technology. So one of the goals of things like our practice quiz is to try and make sure that everyone is comfortable with using the technology. We all know that people can have different levels of comfort, different levels of acceptance when they're working with technology. A lot of these programs are now very intuitive, but one of the things we've noticed is students are now more and more apt to access our quizzes from their phones instead of sitting at a desktop. And one of the things that might happen if someone's scrolling through quiz questions very quickly on their phone is, as they're scrolling, if they're pressing down, they might be changing their answers, and they're not aware of that. And so these are things that the students need to be able to practice and need to be able to become comfortable when using these different platforms, and with getting comfortable logging into the textbook, accessing our videos, performing all of these tasks. So they need both the time to get acclimated to all these resources and the ability to practice with them. And so we've got a few excerpts here from our syllabus that are geared towards addressing those concerns. I showed you earlier the little confirmation message that students receive. As you might expect from students in law school, there's a tendency to overthink all of the actions that we take. And so you have the student who submits their quiz, and they then ask you in an email, in a frantic email, I submitted my quiz, but I don't know if it actually went through. Can you confirm for me? Can you look? And of course we can do that. We can say, okay, I see that you've submitted your quiz. Thank you for your concern. And so then we've added the confirmations. So now that student that would have been frantically emailing us now has an email confirmation that arrives, so they know, okay, I finished my quiz, I'm good. This creates a new problem. The student that would not have been concerned, having submitted and seen a screen that says, you've submitted your quiz, all of a sudden they get an email that has a confirmation in it, and you get a frantic email from a student that says, I've received this little certificate in my email. Do I need to turn it in? Do I need to forward this email to you? And so, look, we've created a feedback loop there. And so, to deal with that in our syllabus, we added a little line that lets you know when you submit the quiz, you'll receive a confirmation email. Emails for your records. We do not need you to turn this in, and you can check in your email just to make sure that you complete the quiz. When we added the save and return feature, we added a little excerpt in our syllabus to let our students know that while it's recommended that you complete the quiz in one sitting, you do have this option. The thing that we really wanted students to know is when you log back into the quiz each time, Classmarker randomizes the answers. And that's an anti-cheating provision, but also if a student is honestly working on their quiz and taking their own notes, and they're expecting to just log back in and say, A, B, C, AA, they'll need to double check those answers because they may have been randomized from the last time that they logged in. And that, of course, leads us to a very weighty concern, as is the concern with anything that is taken outside of the class. There is, unfortunately, the ability and the chance that some students will decide to cheat. Without someone there to proctor a quiz or proctor an exam, this is unfortunately one of the trade-offs for being able to shift the assessment outside of the classroom. So in order to combat that, you will want to make sure that in your syllabus, and it is generally a standard provision, but you'll want to emphasize to your students the honor code policy and any kind of student collaboration policy applies to these online quizzes or any kind of outside of the classroom assignments. Just like in their legal writing work, where you wouldn't want students collaborating on a draft of a memo, they shouldn't be talking about answers to a quiz while they're taking the quiz. And you'll want to know the capabilities of the particular platform that you're using. There are a number of anti-cheating, or at least trying to mitigate cheating options that Classmarker provides. There are options to turn off the ability for students to print. If they try to print, it'll come up with a blank screen. You can randomize the questions, you can randomize the answers, you can create time limits for your quiz. And as we know, though, students could still be outside of the classroom working together. So you'll just have to make sure that they understand that this is as serious as any other kind of honor code violation. But the trade-off is worth it. As we talked about at the beginning, and I'll revisit my goal here, we wanted to be able to have as much time in the classroom working with students as we can. And we've tried multiple models of testing students before class, after class. In all of these situations, the students enjoy having the ability to work with us in class, and they oftentimes find this to be the most valuable. And one of the things remaining in our syllabus that I wanted to share with everyone was, again, talking about flipping the classroom and what the goal is when you're flipping the classroom. So, flipped classroom model, our goals on interacting more with students in the classroom and making our content tailored to our classes, all those really combine, and I really like the last line in that phrase, putting these things into practice with your legal research professor there to guide you. And in the end, some of those experiences have been some of the most rewarding, being able to work with students in the classroom and show them while you're there and as they are completing their work. All right, so this leads me towards the end. I have one more demo that I can show everyone, but I wanted to stop here for any questions that anyone may have. Yes?
So you were explaining the significance of using the out-of-class time for the quizzes, not having them in class, and the trade-offs with that. Are you doing any assessment, like exams that are in class time or an scheduled exam time, so that there is not the opportunity for any plagiarism?
We have in the past. Currently, for the past few years, we've been using the quizzes, and and just for context, in our legal research and writing program, we are teaching with a partner on the legal writing faculty, and we're kind of going back and forth between research classes and writing classes. And in the past, we've had a legal research assessment that was towards the end of the class that was structured a bit more like an exam would be, that was not online. However, for the past few years, we have been relying on the online quizzes, and we'll have one for each unit, like state statutes, state cases. And that is a good point. We've been trying to make sure we keep an eye on our results to look for any kind of aberrations in the data. However, it's just that it just goes back to that trade-off of having the class time available to work with students and having the students accountable for maintaining their honor code responsibilities.
So you're using you're using the quizzes for both formative assessment and summative assessment on each of the modules?
Let's see. Oh, yeah, so we've got, so we've got our, we've got our state statutes unit at the end
Right.
of, and actually I can show that, I can show that for everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and log into our fall textbook. So we've got our different units listed here. We've got our practice quiz for students to take if they'd like. And we've got a very short unit here, an introductory unit on the U.S. legal system. And so after students have gone through the related pages, they would take this legal system quiz before they move on to the next unit. And so it would be assessing what they've learned within that unit. We've experimented with a couple of different options. We, in the past, have used pre-class exercises, asking students to complete that before they come into class. In the past year, we've been having post-class exercises to assess students after they've completed the material. And there have been pros and cons to both of those arrangements. In some instances, we felt like students completing the pre-class exercises were better equipped coming into class. But then, of course, you have students feeling like they haven't had a chance to engage with their instructor regarding materials before they were assessed. And then waiting until after they've seen the material, students will generally perform well, but we're still relying on them to complete their obligations before coming into class. Yes.
So, do you guys use Twin as your course management system?
We do use Twin.
Okay. So there's quizzing in Twin. Can you tell me why you guys selected Classmarker as opposed to using the quizzing that's native to the course management system? Like, are there specific advantages to Classmarker?
In Classmarker, the analytics have been one of the biggest features for us. Classmarker allows you to export your quiz data very easily. In terms of the quizzes that we're able to create, we've really enjoyed having the different question style options, and really on the statistics and data management side of it. That's where Classmarker really shines.
Are you guys using the free version, or are you paying for it?
Let's see, so this is the paid version, and that is good to note that both LibGuides and Classmarker do require a subscription. LibGuides and Classmarker rather, they do have an educator's package that is priced lower, and in the past, Classmarker had a model where you had to purchase a set number of credits that you would use, and like many other platforms, they've moved now to a subscription model where you'll pay a certain amount per month, you can pay annually, and that drops it down to 10 months, the 10-month price for the entire year. And then you'll get something on the order of 400 quizzes per month, or 800 quizzes per month. And
Is that a login like per instructor?
I'd
Or
say
is it a login for each instructor that you have to purchase, or is there like an institutional account and then you create users within it?
you would have one account, and then within that account, you could create the quiz and then assign that to each instructor. So you would only need one account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to paying for the quizzing function, I looked at the analytics you were displaying, and they are the same analytics as we get for free through Twin. So I'm just wondering, what additional analytics is it providing that we're not getting through Twin or Moodle or Canvas?
And let me jump in. Bear with me, everyone, I've got too many tabs. So, and before I get too ahead of myself, I'm a little bit wary of logging in and having.
I'm just asking, what are the additional analytics that you're getting from Classmarker that you're not getting from Twin?
Let's see. So in terms of being able to compare, create one quiz and have individual instructor links that are able to be compared not only to the other instructors, but as a whole.
Can I jump in?
Yes, by all means.
So Erin is my colleague, and we have a shared curriculum, so we have 6 sections, and I think if we were to each create our own quiz in Twin, then we would each only have access to our own students' data. And what we wanted to do was look, so if there's one quiz that, for example, Erin wrote the statutes quiz, then all I have to do is assign that link
Right.
to his quiz that is assigned to me, to my students. And then there's his copy for his students and so on. And so you can break it down all in one place in Classmarker of how Erin's students did and how my students did and all the other instructors. And then you can also see how all of the USC law students did on that same quiz. And that's a little easier to do there. I mean, you could probably do the same thing with Twin, where you download your own students and then combine it into, all across the curriculum. But it is all in one place.
Thank you, Eve. Any other questions?
So other than the practice quiz, which is not graded, all the quizzes are graded and contribute to the grade for the semester?
Yes, that's right. So we would have the one practice quiz that's ungraded, and we took
Which is not about content, that's about really familiarizing yourself with the quiz approach and the technology, right?
Right, exactly. And if we actually took a look at it. So this is what the quiz looks like if someone logs in. And using the save and return feature, The students create a one-time password to log in. And it's tied to their email account for that particular quiz. Log in with my alias here. And so after some instructions, you see we've got our 4 little questions here. I'm going to get one wrong here. Got an example here of our multiple choice and the all that apply questions. Based on that list, would anyone like to venture a guess when the current law school building was completed? 2017, maybe? And then we've got our little yes or no. If the student wanted to save and finish later, they would be able to click on the link and log back in using their email address and the password that they created. If not, they can go ahead and finish now. We purposefully set this practice quiz to be worth 0 points no matter what. Each of the questions is worth 0 points. We didn't want the students thinking that they were either gaining or losing points by taking the practice quiz. And there are a few additional examples that Classmarker themselves provide for the different types of questions. You can add video content, you can add pictures if you'd like. As we mentioned earlier, if you do put in pictures, you'd want to create captions for those pictures. There are matching questions, and there are, of course, citation and free answer questions. There are also essay questions, but you lose the ability with the essay questions to have the automatic grading. That was one of our objectives. Yes.
I'm sorry, I might have missed this. Are the quizzes the only factor in their grades?
So, as a part of our combined legal research and writing, we teach in a combined class with our writing partners. So for the past couple of years on the research side, the quizzes are the majority part of their grade. In the spring, they do have a group project that they do a presentation with their peers. But the other component of their grade is coming from the writing side, and there's a lot of weight placed on their memo and their writings.
So it's the quiz and the group presentation for the research part?
Yes.
So they're not being, on the research side, they're not having a graded research task that they have to, find a federal statute on X.
And so on the research side, it's very much interwoven with what they're doing on the writing side.
Sure.
And so we'll have those in-class, we have in-class exercises that we work on with them that are keyed towards what they're working on in their writing classes.
And to the extent they have to do that research to generate the brief or the memo, then that'll be reflected in the grade they're getting on the writing assignment. But they're not getting a graded research assignment that you assess their statutory research or their case law research as a skill, as opposed to their knowledge of objective information.
Right, that's right. So that's all feeding into what they're writing about in their writing classes. And I apologize if I didn't make that more clear earlier. It's very much a combined effort between those two sides.
So is that